Hi guys, welcome back. Hello if you are new, and thanks ever so much for tuning in once again. I hope all of you guys are having a great week so far. We've kind of got a short week this week because it's the Jubilee that we're all celebrating today, so I've been celebrating by playing Hitman 3. But I'm talking about an album today that really has blindsided me completely. I absolutely adore this record. It's easily, without a doubt, one of my albums of the year, and that is Astronoid's Radiant Bloom. So, if you're not familiar with the band, they have released 2 full lengths, an EP, and this is their brand new release via 3 Dot Recordings. So if you're not familiar with 3 Dot Recordings as well, that's a brand new label that's been set up by the guys in Periphery, and they also released, I think, the Haunting Shores and a couple of other things as well. So really good backers, and it's distributed by Century Media. Their sound is kind of a component of 3 things, and it's the build-up that you would see in, say, like post-rock. Then there's the musical dexterity that you would see in prog. And last, but probably the most important, is a heartfelt emotion. And it made me think of, kind of emo bands in a kind of weird way. But it's that sense of emotion for me that really made this resonate so much more. And I think makes Astronoid stand out a lot more from the pack. The opening riff of Drown, for example, has this kind of inherent sadness to it, but it's also kind of like a joy. It reminded me a little bit, if you're a Sunshine fan, you might get this, but when Cillian Murphy kind of, he's resolved himself, that he knows that he will sacrifice himself, but for the greater good of humanity and save the world. It's that kind of thing, And there's even times where it reminded me of a lot of bands that, are kind of like not really associated with metal or anything like that. So like Seguros, especially in I've Forgotten Your Face, there was a lot of that kind of swelling, emotional feel. Reminded me in places of Arcade Fire as well, that same kind of idea. So very different bands from what you would maybe traditionally think from Astronoid. And for me, I think this is where the artwork translates beautifully, because Travis Smith, who has, done work for Catatonia, Opeth in the past, I think he's really approached it differently, but kind of has created that universe that you could imagine kind of, it feels almost a bit sci-fi, but kind of, just like traveling through space. But it's the use of those beautiful pinks and blues, and it reminds me of the colours that you'd see in the sky during dusk or maybe at dawn, that sort of thing, but also has that exploratory nature to it. And in a way kind of makes you, and this is something I've always kind of reveled in, is kind of realise your insignificance in the world, in terms of like the grander scheme of life. And as I mentioned, a lot of Astronoid's appeal for me is in the layers. And so you've got Admin, which it kind of, kicks off the record. And there's so much going on here, but once you kind of peel back everything and you look at the individual notes that the guitars are playing, the bass, the fact that there's kind of synthesizers going on there, multiple layered vocals, it's such an appealing kind of onion, really. Like it's just really, really interesting. And now, there might not necessarily be a whole lot of solos on here, but where the melody is concerned, on Eyes, there's an amazing guitar solo, and it follows that sort of Act 1, 2, and 3 structure, which I think is what makes it such a good solo, because it really kind of has that climactic finale, But also on Sedative, there's another great solo. But it's kind of, I like the fact that there's not necessarily all that many, because it's kind of, you appreciate them more when they are there, rather than kind of being sort of overkill, really. I think one of the other things is that the songs are really effortlessly pushed forward. So a lot of the time that'll be because of the drums. You know, they'll change the overall beat, but the guitar will remain the same. But then I also think that bass is really important. And when you've got a really solid rhythm section, you know, when the band kind of need to chunk things up a bit and get a bit more riffy, the bass really kind of anchors that sound. But it's also incredibly nimble and allows those kind of transition sections to sound even smoother. And the bass might be there to kind of navigate these elements, but also provides a different kind of melody at the same time as it's nestled into the song. I also wanted to quickly touch on the themes of this record, and I think, again, another reason it's resonated is that it kind of deals with the idea of just being human and the trials and tribulations that we can all experience in everyday life, which for me makes it incredibly relatable, you know, like from the smallest thing up to the biggest problems that you might have. Astronoid have created a perfect symbiosis of impeccable songwriting, progressive landscapes, and emotion that in many times very much almost brought me to tears. And that for me is one of the reasons that this is without a doubt an album of the year contender. So thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this video and the album. Let me know what you think of both in the comments section below. Other than that, I will see you very, very soon for another album review. Take care, my friends.